In the modern world, amid new materials, superconducting technologies, and classical semiconductors that are slowly approaching their limits, diamond still stands in a position that few substances can replace. It appears inside quantum laboratories, in chips that require absolute cooling, in the scalpels of microsurgeons. And at the same time, it rests in black velvet boxes in jewelry stores, where lighting is engineered to make everything look more beautiful. A single stone can be both the symbol of eternity and a weapon of future science. A material that can evoke love as well as ambition, hope as well as the shadow of war. There is no substance layered with meaning quite like diamond. But before it entered every human story, it was once only carbon, a modest element present in all life. And to understand why diamond has been worshipped, feared, fought over, and then reborn through technology, we must return to the point where the story began. The deep earth, where time and pressure create a structure that borders on the absolute. Imagine a realm where light never reaches. At depths of 150-200 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface, temperatures rise above 200 degrees Celsius, and pressures climb high enough to bend any molecular structure. In that place, carbon, the familiar, flammable, soft, ordinary substance, is crushed to its limits. With no other choice, carbon atoms are forced to arrange themselves into a tetrahedral lattice, a structure so perfect it can survive even when time and geology conspire to destroy it. It is this very lattice that makes diamond the hardest natural material known to humankind. What is strange is that this process is not quick. It unfolds over hundreds of millions, even billions of years. Many diamonds are older than today's continents, older than the creatures that once ruled the earth and vanished. Diamond is not merely matter. It is geological memory. A memory lying silent in darkness, unaware that one day it would become a symbol of love, of power, of desire, and of pain. But to exist at all, diamonds must overcome one more rare condition. They must be carried toward the surface before being destroyed. Only kimberlite eruptions, columns of magma that rise with velocities beyond imagination, can transport diamond out of the deep earth without burning it into graphite. These eruptions are so rare that many of today's diamond-rich regions experienced only one such event in prehistoric times, which means that every diamond in human hands today is the result of a chain of geological luck bordering on the miraculous. It is like a message from antiquity, sent upward unexpectedly, then left waiting for humankind to find it. And humanity did find it, not through science, but through intuition. In the ancient valleys and riverbeds of the Indian subcontinent, the first humans saw the strange light of diamonds. They knew nothing of chemistry. They knew nothing of pressure or crystal, lattices. They only knew that this light was unlike anything they had ever seen. It did not dim under water. It did not scratch when struck against the stone. It did not burn in the fire. It reflected light as if holding a fragment of the sun inside itself. In a world where belief and nature intertwined, diamonds became sacred, not because it was beautiful, but because it resembled nothing else on earth. Ancient Indians believed it was the Vajra, the thunderbolt weapon of the god Indra. They believed the stone held protective energy, strength, power, and prosperity. And from this land, where rivers carried silt and sunlight, touched the surfaces of stones, diamonds stepped out from geological darkness and entered human history. A new journey began, a journey no longer belonging to the earth, but to societies, beliefs, and people. That journey would lead us to ancient India, where the first diamonds were mined, worshipped, traded, and regarded as extensions of the divine, where diamond was sacred, but not yet a commodity, where the story of diamonds first took the shape of civilization. If you walk along the banks of an ancient river, where the waters carry the memories of a rising Himalaya, you might come across traces of journeys humankind never recorded. More than 3,000 years ago, along the tributaries of the Krishna River in central India, local people began to pick up small stones, hard and bright enough to bend sunlight when it touched them. No one knew where they came from. No one knew that deep beneath those ancient rocks, billions of years earlier, they had once been trembling carbon atoms under the Earth's pressure. There was only one certainty: their light was strange. From the earliest days, humans have always been drawn to light. Light is the sign of life, of safety, of hope. Even in the darkness of prehistoric caves, fire was not merely a tool for warmth, but a sacred presence, the center of every story told. So when a tiny solid object on the ground could emit a sparkle like fire, it is no surprise that our ancestors paused and watched it longer than they needed to. Imagine a hunter or a village child bending down to lift a small object from the water's surface. In the instant sunlight touches the stone, it does more than shine. It reflects, but in a completely different way. Its light does not spread softly like fire. It holds its shape, its lines, its edges, a sharp clarity rarely found in nature. We do not know who first picked up a diamond, but we know where it happened. Golconda, the land that would become the cradle of every diamond legend in human history. In these ancient communities, diamond was soon regarded as sacred. It was not used as jewelry, not traded, not cut. It was kept exactly in the form nature had given it, for people believed that touching it, altering it, would cause the stone's spiritual power to disappear. Ancient Indians used diamonds as talismans, as protective charms, as spiritual guardians rather than symbols of wealth. The earliest texts describing diamonds say that people believed they could ward off evil spirits, repel illness, and especially shield their owner from sudden death. The beauty of a diamond was not only its light, but the sense of safety humans projected onto it. And curiously, at that time, people had no idea how hard it was. They did not know that no natural substance on earth could scratch a diamond. All of that would come much later. In those days, what they saw was only the light, and what they felt was its invulnerability. But perhaps what made diamond a part of human history was not merely its beauty or hardness, but its stillness. Unlike gold, soft, malleable, meltable, easily shaped into tools, diamond refused human intervention. It would not change form. It would not yield. It was not born to be jewelry. It was simply an atomic structure so perfect that nothing more could be done to it. That perfection made people feel it belonged to another realm, a higher, more distant place where the will of earth and fire crystallized into incorruptibility. Thus, diamonds quickly became tied to supernatural power. In the earliest Indian legends, the diamond was the weapon of Indra, the god of thunder. People believed its blade-like light could pierce the darkness of demons. And so, warriors often carried small stones in leather pouches, convinced that something so unbreakable would give them the strength to overcome their fear of death. To the west, Persian and Arab merchants began hearing about the strange stones from Indian rivers. Diamonds were so rare then that no one traded them in the ordinary sense. They were hidden in pouches, exchanged hand to hand, or used as offerings in important meetings. None of it was commercial. All of it was ceremonial. But whenever an object becomes linked with power, it always finds a way to move beyond the borders of its birthplace. The first diamonds left Golconda not because locals wanted to sell them, but because they were gifted to merchants and priests on long journeys. And from them, diamonds began traveling along trade routes that would later form the foundation of the ancient world. In Europe, during its earliest centuries, diamonds appeared as a mystery. The Romans believed it was a fragment of stars. Pliny the Elder, the great naturalist, described diamond as the strongest thing nature has ever created, invincible against fire and iron. Ancient people sensed the truth, even though they had no tools to prove it. What made the diamond extraordinary was not its material value. It was the unconscious recognition that it did not belong to the fragile, breakable world of humankind. It came from darkness, from pressure, from millions of years without a single trace of life. And yet now, it rested in the palm of a human hand. That story, the meeting between infinite time and the finite moment of a person, is the beginning of every fascination, every legend, and every tragedy of a diamond. And as ancient civilizations began to grow, as power became more complex, as humans wanted more than protection, the light of diamond began to change as well. It was no longer just the light of faith, it became the light of ambition. The next chapter will open that moment when diamond entered the hands of emperors and priests, where light became power. If you open any page of the world's ancient history, you will see that power was never measured solely by armies, land, or precious metals. In the earliest civilizations, power was always tied to something else, the ability to touch the supernatural. Whoever could protect themselves from the unseen was considered stronger. And in that context, diamond, a substance both solid and transparent, both tangible and mysterious, became a bridge between humans and the things they could not yet comprehend. When the first diamonds left the waters of the Krishna River, they did not become commodities. They became symbols. Every civilization that encountered diamond understood it in its own way, yet all reached the same conclusion. This stone did not belong to the ordinary world. Imagine a ceremony inside an ancient Indian temple. Light from oil lamps flickers against stone walls, where carved deities watch silently over the people. A priest enters, holding a small object wrapped in white cloth. When he unfolds it, the light reflected from the diamond brightens the room for just an instant. Not strongly, not brilliantly. Just enough to remind everyone that there are things in this world that refuse to be forgotten. To the priests, the diamond was not merely a talisman, it was the embodiment of order, of inviolability. In the Vedas, India's ancient scriptures, diamond was seen as the crystallization of cosmic energy, a force capable of repelling all evil. And so priests used diamonds to bless warriors before battle. They believed that the blade-like light of Indra's weapon appeared only in the presence of this stone. But once an object carries sacred meaning, sooner or later kings will turn their attention to it. Ancient empires never cared only about gold. Gold was soft, malleable, and too easily seized by enemies. But diamond, small, hard, rare, and imbued with supernatural significance, was the perfect symbol of power that could not be broken. In Persia, Zoroastrian magi believed that diamonds held the light of truth, the light of Asha, a central concept of their religion. King Darius and the monarchs after him were said to possess unusually shaped stones used in rituals to assert their divine legitimacy. No one could look at a diamond and deny the authority of its owner, for that person held in their hand a near-immortal object. Farther west in ancient Rome, diamond began to take on a new role. It became not only sacred, but a test of courage. Romans believed that diamonds could grant invincibility to warriors. Some generals sewed diamonds into their armor, convinced that the stone would lock away fear. Pliny the Elder, one of antiquity's great scholars, wrote that diamonds could neutralize poison, dull weapons, and protect their bearers from evil spirits. Though science disproves this today, psychology affirms it. When you believe you are protected, you fight differently. And that was the true power of diamonds in Phi, the ancient world. It changed the way people confronted fear. Yet, those who understood diamond best at the time were not warriors or emperors, but magi. To them, its clarity was not a symbol of beauty, but of truth itself. No impurities, no fractures, a perfect structure in a world full of chaos. They used diamonds to read omens, to distinguish right from wrong, to divine the fate of empires. Though these practices were illusions of their age, diamond became the most potent spiritual tool in the hands of those considered between two worlds. But power rarely remains in the hands of one group. When Arab merchants began carrying diamonds from India to other lands, the stone did more than travel across geography. It traveled across meaning. What had once been a sacred object in a small temple now became a symbol of political authority. Across Middle Eastern and Mediterranean courts, diamonds were placed in crowns, sword hilts, and royal ceremonial garments. Each stone carried not just material value, but a message. I possess what nature grants to only a few. I am stronger. I am protected by the divine. And when an object symbolizes power, one thing inevitably happens. It is no longer kept in the form nature created. The earliest artisans began experimenting with cutting diamonds, not to make them more beautiful, but to make their light sharper, stronger, and more fitting for the power they represented. They had no idea they were opening a new chapter in the history of diamonds, a chapter in which light would no longer be nature's gift, but a creation of human hands. But that story belongs to the next section. Before diamonds became dazzling ornaments, they had already traveled a long path from talismans to royal authority. And along that journey, it carried with it a truth people of the time could not fully grasp. Whenever power meets eternal beauty, ambition will always begin to grow. In the next part, we will follow the anonymous merchants who carried diamonds across deserts, seas, and empires, opening the secret trade routes that would shape the fate of this stone for the next several millennia. If you look at a map of the ancient world, you will see faint lines connecting India, Persia, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean. These lines are not borders. They are the paths humanity carved with footsteps, with dreams, with fear, and with goods so precious they could never be traded openly. Among those goods, diamonds were the quietest. So quiet that for thousands of years, the world had no idea a secret trading route was unfolding beneath the dust of civilizations. Unlike silk or spices, diamonds were far too small to be transported in large caravans. No camel train ever carried loads of diamonds. No warehouse ever stored piles of gemstones. Most diamonds of that era were no bigger than a green pea, and their value did not lie in quantity, but in their ability to alter the fate of the person who carried them. Imagine an Arab merchant crossing the desert at night, cold wind, a sky filled with stars. At his waist, he keeps a small leather pouch holding 3 tiny stones, valuable enough to buy a house in a great city, yet light enough that no one would know he carried anything at all. No sound, no gleam, only one sensation. He is transporting time. Merchants of that era had no idea where diamonds came from. They only knew that the world's sole supply lay in India, and so Golconda became a place not everyone could set foot in. Those who had once traded diamonds never revealed the exact location of the mines. Some even spread tales that the stones formed inside mythical serpents, and only those bold enough to slay them could retrieve the gems. The goal was not to embellish mythology, but to protect the secret. The more secretive a diamond was, the more precious it became. For more than 1,000 years, the diamond trade route ran from India to Persia, then on to Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, and finally the Mediterranean. Merchants carried diamonds in a way only darkness understood. No boasting, no storytelling, no caravans. Each person carried only a few stones, never more, because they knew that with one moment of carelessness, they would lose not only their goods, but their lives. In Persia, diamonds became gifts exchanged among royal courts. In Damascus, they were used in rituals. In Jerusalem, they were embedded in sacred objects. And in Rome, diamonds began to be seen as items reserved for the elite, where beauty had to accompany power, and power had to accompany immortality. Yet through all those centuries, no one truly understood how diamonds formed. Persians believed they came from places where light touched the earth. Romans believed they fell from the stars. Indians believed they were the frozen breath of gods, and it was precisely this mystery that shaped the stone's value. The harder a thing is to understand, the easier it becomes mythic. And myth, in the ancient world, meant power. But the story of diamonds is not only the story of great civilizations, it is also the story of nameless merchants, people whose names never appear in history books, yet whose hands carried the stone across continents, weaving it into global history. Imagine a night market in Samarkand, where the Silk Road crosses itself, voices murmuring, camels huffing, goods clinking together. A man from Persia meets a man from India. No one looks too long. No one uses the word diamond. One places a small leather pouch on a stone table. In exchange, he receives another pouch filled with rare spices, fine silk, or small gold ingots. The transaction lasts only seconds, yet it continues a tradition centuries old. These exchanges formed an invisible network, a network with no laws, no paperwork, no storage, yet more stable over millennia than any empire. All because diamonds possessed three qualities that made them the ideal commodity of the ancient world: small, durable, and easy to hide. No one could destroy it. No one could control where it went. No one could guess whose hand it rested in. But that very invisibility became the beginning of a great shift. When Europeans learned of diamonds, they did not see only beauty. They saw opportunity. The opportunity to possess the kind of power Eastern civilizations had guarded for so long. From the 11th to the 13th century, Venetian and Genoese merchants began seeking access to India's diamond supply. But unlike Arab traders, who hid diamonds as though hiding secrets, Europeans wanted more. They wanted to understand how to possess them, how to control them, and how to turn diamonds into a component of their economy. And that opened a new chapter. The chapter in which diamonds ceased to be merely sacred and began to become a commodity. From here, diamond history transformed. It left the world of priests and magi and entered the world of merchants, royal courts, and eventually traders of unprecedented ambition. In the next part, we will witness the moment when humans first began to touch the light. When diamond-cutting techniques were born and its natural beauty was seen for the first time in a way nature itself had never allowed. If there is a moment in history when diamonds stepped out of darkness to become the object we recognize today, sparkling, faceted, sharp as a blade of light, then that moment does not belong to nature. It belongs to humanity. It belongs to the hands of the Renaissance craftsmen of Europe, men who dared to do what earlier civilizations never imagined: touch perfection. Before the 14th century, diamonds were kept exactly as nature created them. People believed that to interfere with a diamond was to strip it of its sacred power, its spiritual protection. But the world was changing, expanding trade empires, growing merchant cities, and with them a shifting desire to understand and to possess beauty. Imagine a small workshop in Bruges, Belgium. Candlelight spilling over a stone table. A craftsman holding a rough diamond between his thumb and forefinger. He is not appealing to the gods. He is attempting something no one had dared for thousands of years, shaving off a tiny corner. The first sound is faint, almost imperceptible. The diamond does not crumble like stone. It does not grind like metal. It is so hard that even the craftsman doubts whether his idea is possible. Then he realizes something vital. Only a diamond can cut a diamond. And from the first tiny fragments produced in that experiment, a new art was born, an art that would change the history of light. The idea that a diamond could be cut to become more beautiful spread slowly among artisans. They were not yet trying to create complex facets. They simply wanted flatter surfaces, more symmetry, and easier reflection of light. But soon they discovered something nature had never done. Light could be controlled. If nature created diamonds through pressure and time, humans created their beauty through mathematics and patience. The earliest cuts were called the point cut, Very simple, four symmetrical faces. Then came the table cut, introducing a broad, flat surface on top. And from this, the world learned a truth that remains unchanged today. A diamond does not truly shine until it passes through human hands. But diamond cutting was more than a technical endeavor. It was a psychological one. When Europeans saw the light reflected from cut stones, they began to perceive diamonds in a new way. No longer as something sacred, no longer as an object for protection or ritual. It became a beauty that could be revealed, shaped, and perfected. And so, diamond left the world of priests and entered the hands of goldsmiths. In the courts of Burgundy, France, and later the Habsburg realms, diamonds became a fashion symbol. Queens, duchesses, and noble families began wearing brooches, rings, and pendants set with diamonds cut in the earliest modern styles. People no longer viewed diamonds as charms of spiritual defense. They viewed them as declarations of status. Because the diamond's cut light was sharper than the light of gold. Because its cold clarity made all other metals seem soft. Because its beauty, unlike anything in nature, evoked the feeling that whoever possessed it had conquered the chaos of the world. Diamond was no longer a symbol of sacred eternity. It became a symbol of earthly power. Then another pivotal moment arrived. For the first time in history, diamonds were cut not to reflect light, but to tell a story. Recall the earliest engagement rings. Before the 15th century, they had no diamonds, only gold, sometimes set with rubies or emeralds. But in 1477, when Archduke Maximilian of Austria gave Mary of Burgundy a diamond engagement ring, a new tradition was born. No one knows whether Maximilian understood the full implication of his gesture. But humanity understood. Diamond was not merely the most beautiful stone, it was the hardest to destroy. For love, that was an overwhelming message. From that moment on, diamonds became linked with promises, not promises placed in the stone by nature, but one's humans attached to it. Christian churches embraced the symbolism too, viewing diamonds as representations of purity and the enduring strength of marriage. A stone that had traveled from the dark heart of the earth into the hands of priests, then emperors, was now being offered to symbolize love between two ordinary people. But there was one thing European craftsmen did not know. At the very moment they were refining their cutting techniques, a distant land in the southern part of Africa was awakening. A land where, beneath ordinary dust, lay the largest diamond deposits in the world, deposits that would completely alter the balance of markets, of power, and of diamond history. The light of diamond had only just come under human control, and it was about to be pulled into a whirlwind of struggle greater than anything that had come before. In the next part, we will travel to Kimberley, where Africa's first great diamond mines were discovered, and where the light of diamonds first became stained with the shadows of greed, colonialism, and blood. If you stood on the dry, red earth of southern Africa in the mid-19th century, you would see nothing that hinted at an event capable of reshaping the world's economic history. Hot wind, blowing dust, the scattered huts of Dutch settlers, no grandeur, no prophecy, no shimmer of light. And then, a young boy picked up a stone so small it might have been forgotten had the afternoon sun not struck it at exactly the right angle. That stone, later known as the Eureka diamond, was not only the first diamond discovered in the Kimberley region. It was destiny knocking, a signal that Africa's diamond age was beginning. But history is rarely gentle. When a land of great value is discovered, it does not wait for its native people to decide their own future. It summons forces stronger, larger, and far more ambitious. The moment the first discovery was confirmed, a wave of humanity surged into Kimberley. Fortune seekers, speculators, adventurers, businessmen, they arrived like fierce winds, erecting tents, digging deep pits, and tearing open the earth as if searching for the continent's beating heart. No one has called the place Kimberley yet. They called it the Big Hole. And true to its name, this small patch of land soon became a literal chasm, deep enough to swallow an entire town. From above, Kimberley resembled a monstrous wound on the flesh of Africa, a wound carved not by nature, but by human hands. Yet, unlike ancient civilizations that once encountered diamonds, the miners here did not see the stone as sacred. They saw it as an opportunity, as a ticket to transformation, as the fastest road out of poverty. And for that reason, their rate of extraction obeyed no rule except the rule of desire. For every stone discovered, hundreds more people arrived. Layers of earth were overturned day after day. Thousands crowded into cramped shafts, clinging to fragile wooden scaffolds. No one knew when the walls might collapse, but fear was never stronger than hope. And so they kept digging. The world was changing, and European empires viewed this land with very different eyes. If diamonds had once symbolized religion in India and Persia, they now symbolized economic power, dominion, and the ability to influence global markets. Britain and the Netherlands, two rivals competing for influence in southern Africa, soon realized that controlling Kimberley meant controlling an immense reservoir of wealth. Wealth is not just in the ground, but in the authority to determine the value of a substance that the entire world desires. And when empires touch a land, they never withdraw gently. The Griqua people in surrounding African communities were pushed off their ancestral territories to make room for mining claims. Local laborers were recruited under brutal contracts. They worked in conditions devoid of air, light, and safety. Their workdays underground were longer than the day above. The price of diamonds' brilliance was always the darkness that miners lived in. Yet Kimberley was not only a story of suffering, it was the birthplace of an unprecedented economic turning point. Before Kimberley, the world knew only Indian diamonds, rare, limited, scarce. After Kimberley, supply increased tenfold. Market logic said prices should fall. But history would soon prove that diamonds were no longer a natural product. They were about to become a human one, specifically the product of a single empire. Independent diggers were gradually pushed aside by major investors, newly formed companies, and men capable of buying land, hiring labor, and operating machinery. Among these figures was a young Englishman who would reshape the world's understanding of diamonds, Cecil Rhodes. In Kimberley, Rhodes did not dig for diamonds, he dug for opportunity. Step by step, he consolidated ownership of the mines, merging claims, eliminating the chaos that defined the early rush. For he understood something no one else in Kimberley fully grasped. Diamonds have value not because they are plentiful or rare, but because the world believes they are rare. And once a man understands that, the value of diamonds no longer lies underground. It lies in the hands of those who control the story. Kimberley is the opening chapter of the dark side, a chapter of forced labor, territorial conflict, colonial power, and thousands of shattered dreams buried in dust. But it is also the place where diamonds were reborn as a global commodity, where beauty began to be priced through the pain of those who would never wear it. In the next part, we will enter the most pivotal moment in modern diamond history, the birth of De Beers, the empire that would control light, desire, and the dreams of humanity for more than a century. If Kimberley was the birthplace of a new diamond age, then De Beers was the hand that shaped that entire age, not with shovels or picks or the yawning depths of mines, but with something far more powerful, the ability to control the story the world was allowed to believe. After the chaotic early years of mining, thousands of diggers crowded into the big hole, prices rising and crashing like a restless wind. A force strong enough to impose order was needed. That force arrived in the form of a young man with sharp eyes, a low voice, and an ambition stretching wider than the Kalahari Desert, Cecil Rhodes. Rhodes was not enamored with diamond's beauty. He was enamored with something else, power. And power, to him, was not in owning a single stone, but in controlling all of them. In 1888, after a string of acquisitions, mergers, and strategic eliminations of rivals, Rhodes founded De Beers Consolidated Mines. A simple name, yet behind it lay the birth of a company that would hold absolute power over the diamond industry for more than a century. From the beginning, De Beers understood something no one else saw. Diamonds are not valuable because they are beautiful, but because the world thinks they are rare. In reality, with the massive mines of southern Africa, diamond supply had surged so dramatically that if left to natural market forces, its value would collapse. But De Beers did not allow that to happen. They controlled the global supply and held it in secret vaults, releasing only small, carefully calibrated quantities. The market never saw more than De Beers permitted. In London, there was a room where rough diamonds from across Africa were gathered. No one outside De Beers ever knew how many stones lay inside. Occasionally they opened the vault, occasionally they closed it, and with each opening and closing, global diamond prices rose and fell like the breath of a giant creature only they could tame. But controlling supply was only half the story. The other half, more dangerous, more intricate, was the control of belief. Diamonds are not rare, but De Beers made the world believe they were. Diamonds are not connected to love, but De Beers made the world believe they were. Diamonds do not symbolize eternity, but De Beers made the world believe they did. No science was needed, no logic, only repetition, long enough, loud enough, everywhere. It was the power of a media empire built before the world even understood the concept of branding. Even the way De Beers sold diamonds was unique. They did not sell freely. They held private, secretive sales known as sites. Merchants who were invited could not choose their stones, could not negotiate, could not question. They received a parcel selected by De Beers at a fixed price, refused to buy, and they might never be invited again. De Beers did not merely sell diamonds. They sold the privilege of being inside their system, and strangely enough, the world accepted this with quiet obedience. While Cecil Rhodes laid the foundation for De Beers, another man waited to take the empire even further, Ernest Oppenheimer. If Rhodes was the opportunist, Oppenheimer was the architect who could turn opportunity into structure. During the 20th century, as wars shook the world and people yearned for something unchanging, Oppenheimer saw an opening. People did not buy diamonds because they were beautiful. They bought them because of the meaning they believed diamonds carried. But meaning was not something nature bestowed. Meaning had to be manufactured. Oppenheimer built De Beers on two pillars. 1. Absolute control of supply. 2. Creating demand the culture itself must obey. If nature created the stone, De Beers created the reason humanity desired it. And to do that, they stepped out of mines, stepped away from accounting ledgers, and walked straight into the heart of human culture, where emotion outweighs truth, where fear of loss outweighs desire, and where a promise can last a lifetime. From here onward, diamond left the world of diggers, traders, and kings. It became part of personal stories, proposals, vows, weddings, the milestones of human love. Diamond, hard, cold, immutable, became the perfect symbol for the things people wished would never change, not because it is truly eternal, but because believing it makes people feel safer. That feeling was powerful enough to eclipse reality. And in that eclipse, De Beers found its greatest power. But the greatest turning point, the moment that would define diamond's place in global culture, was still ahead. It lay waiting in an advertising campaign that would transform the language of love and imprint itself so deeply that a century later, its influence would remain intact. A simple sentence, a slogan that made the world believe this stone was not only beautiful, but carried the soul of eternity. It would all begin with 4 words: a diamond is forever. If there is a moment when a diamond stepped beyond the realm of material and became a cultural symbol, that moment did not happen in a quarry, nor in a laboratory, nor in the palace of any great empire. It happened in a small office in New York, where a team of people was desperately trying to answer the question that threatened to collapse the entire diamond industry. How do you make the world continue to desire something that is not rare at all? After the Great Depression and World War II, demand for diamonds dropped sharply. Men returning from the battlefield no longer dreamed of luxury jewelry. They wanted a home, a job, a quiet life. Meanwhile, diamond supply from Africa kept growing, threatening to unravel the entire structure De Beers had painstakingly built. If nothing changed, a diamond would become just another shiny stone. Beautiful, yes, but not essential. This was when De Beers hired the advertising agency N.W. Ayer, one of the most seasoned names in the industry, to create demand for a product no one actually needed. They were not allowed to lie, but they were allowed to tell a story. And sometimes, stories are more powerful than truth. N.W. Ayer's first strategy was not direct advertising. They began by shaping culture. Fashion magazines, society columns, films, and public figures all gradually began showing diamonds as a natural part of love and marriage. No one said aloud, "You must buy a diamond ring." But culture began whispering it, a story repeated over and over. True love needs a symbol. That symbol must endure, must not change with time, must not fade, must not break. And then, one evening in 1947, a young copywriter, Francis Garrity, exhausted after days of work, scribbled a sentence before leaving the office. "A diamond is forever." 4 words, no flourish, no description of beauty, no mention of price, yet they pierce the human psyche perfectly. Humans live in constant fear of loss, losing love, losing those they cherish, losing what matters. A diamond, with its unbreakable structure, became the symbol of what the heart longs for: permanence in a world of change. When the slogan appeared in newspapers, radio, and cinema, it did more than advertise a product. It redefined the language of love, and so, culture was reshaped by a single line. People believed that a diamond proved eternal love, not because diamonds are truly eternal, but because the story made them feel safer in the face of life's fragility. A proposal felt incomplete without a diamond ring. A wedding felt unfinished without that sparkle on the bride's hand. A love story seemed less meaningful without a symbol of the unbreakable. Diamonds did not change. Humans changed how they looked at diamonds, but turning a slogan into reality required more than a marketing campaign. De Beers needed to create a sense that a diamond ring must match the value of love itself, and so they introduced the 2 months salary rule, a standard not written in any law, not rooted in any tradition, not supported by any historical precedent, yet embraced worldwide. A man wanting to prove his sincerity? He should buy a diamond ring worth 2 months' income. No economic basis, no cultural foundation, no historical justification. And yet, it became a global norm. Marketing became culture. Culture became truth. Truth became habit. Habit became tradition. Behind that shimmering beauty lies a deeper, more somber story. The shadowed foundation of every symbol. The human longing for eternity does not come from the stone, but from the heart. Even those who fully understood the manipulation behind the campaign still offered diamond rings when proposing, not because they were deceived, but because diamond had become the shared language of emotion, a language everyone understood, even when no one thought about its true history. From here on, diamonds no longer mattered. It became a sign, a symbol that drifted through wars, recessions, social upheavals, and still kept its place in humanity's most intimate moments. But behind that gentle light, a growing darkness took shape. As demand continued to rise and diamonds' value became chained to the story of forever, pressure on African minds intensified. And by the late 20th century, diamonds became tied to something no slogan could conceal: war. Stones, once symbolizing eternal love, were about to enter the darkest chapter of their history, where they no longer represented promises, but became the financial fuel for violence and suffering in some of the poorest regions of the world. And from that moment on, the light of the diamond would never again be as pure as before. If there was a time when the light of a diamond grew so dazzling that people forgot its true origins, there was also a time when its darkness grew so deep that no light could reach it. The late 20th century was precisely the moment when that darkness surfaced. As global demand for diamonds surged from New York to Tokyo, the poorest regions of Africa fell into a vortex they could not escape. Civil war, violence, weapons, and tiny stones worth far more than human life. In jewelry stores, diamonds stood for love and promises. But in Sierra Leone, Angola, Liberia, and Congo, diamonds represented the opposite, the collapse of order, of families, of childhood, of the future. The first thing a stranger sees upon entering the mining fields of Sierra Leone is not sparkle, but earth. A reddish-brown earth, thick and quiet, coating the hands of men, women, and even children barely old enough to hold a shovel. No machines, no technology, only shovels, crude sieves, and the faint hope that beneath the mud lies a stone valuable enough to survive one more day. They dig in silence. They sift in silence. And sometimes they die in silence. No one asks why. No one dares to stop. Because behind them stand soldiers without uniforms, holding AK rifles, their eyes as cold as the stones being unearthed. These men did not need diamonds for beauty. They needed diamonds because diamonds could buy weapons, and weapons could buy power in a world where violence was the only language. Rebel groups in Sierra Leone, such as the Revolutionary United Front, RUF, quickly realized that diamonds were an endless source of funding. They seized mining areas, forced civilians to dig, recruited children as soldiers, and used the tiny stones to purchase ammunition, explosives, and even the silence of foreign governments. No one here spoke of love. No one spoke of promises. No one wore rings. Diamonds here were not cut, polished, or set. They went straight from the earth into the hands of warlords, then flowed along smuggling routes across borders, eventually, through hidden channels, appearing in legitimate shipments in Antwerp, Dubai, or London. No one asked where the stones came from. No one wanted to ask, because every answer carried the echo of gunfire. The irony was brutal. Diamonds were small, easy to hide, easy to transport, making them the ideal currency for war. A pouch of diamonds the size of a palm could pay for tons of weapons. A stone the size of a grain of rice could buy a life. In the shadows of forests and illegal camps, diamonds became the language of fear. Survivors later recounted that the sound of a shovel striking stone made their hearts tighten, not from hope, but from terror. Because finding a diamond meant handing it over, and perhaps never returning. Those stones did not carry light. They carried the ragged breath of forced labor, the distant echo of gunshots, the silent cries that people swallowed back. In international conferences, they were given a cold name, conflict diamonds. But in Africa, people called them by their true name, blood diamonds, not because they were red, but because the paths they traveled were stained with too many lives. The Western world, where diamonds adorned engagements and symbolized eternal love, knew almost nothing of this. Corporations concealed their origins. Middlemen looked away. Consumer nations avoided the questions, because to ask was to confront, and to confront was to threaten an industry worth billions. And though De Beers did not directly operate the bloodiest mines, their long-term control of the diamond market allowed the system to persist without interference. The world had grown so accustomed to diamonds' brilliance that no one wanted to look at their shadow. But the shadow grew until it could no longer be ignored. By the late 1990s, The first images of forced labor, child soldiers, and weapon smuggling routes began circulating. They shocked the world, as if people had suddenly remembered that diamonds did not grow in jewelry stores, but from soil caked with mud, sweat, and sometimes blood. Not all diamonds were blood diamonds, but a small fraction, a hidden stream, was enough to stain the symbol the world trusted. A stone could tell many stories. In New York, it told a story of love. In Tokyo, there are weddings. In Paris, there's elegance. But in Sierra Leone, it told a story of survival. And that truth made diamonds' brilliance more two-sided than ever. But history does not end in darkness. Out of global outrage, out of demands for transparency, out of international pressure, a new mechanism began to emerge, one designed to halt the flow of blood diamonds and force the world to confront the origins of its light. Yet the road toward transparency would not be smooth. It would be riddled with controversy, loopholes, and moments when the mechanism itself became part of the problem. The next chapter of the diamond story would no longer unfold in the deep forests of Sierra Leone, but in international conference rooms where people attempted to answer a single question: can a stone shine in one person's hand without extinguishing the light of another's life? If you look at a diamond in the glass case of a luxury boutique, it is hard to imagine that its journey may have passed through dark alleys, makeshift airports, hidden shirt pockets, border crossings without gates, or even rooms where whispers are more dangerous than gunfire. But wherever there is scarcity, there is a market. Wherever profit outpaces the reach of the law, there is shadow. And diamond, small, light, easy to hide, and almost impossible to trace, has become one of the most ideal commodities for the global underground economy. If you walked into Antwerp in the late 20th century, you would see a small district with quiet cobblestone streets and jewelry stores lined up side by side. But behind those glittering windows lay a world only the chosen could see, a place where diamonds were traded through glances, nods, and trust built over generations. No paperwork, no receipts, no trail. Antwerp was not just a trading hub, it was a junction between two worlds, a legal, dazzling world above and a submerged one below, where blood diamonds from Africa slipped into the mainstream flow along routes no government could fully control. But Antwerp was only one corner of the map. In Dubai, the gold souks of Dara built their own ecosystem where cash and gemstones flowed like water. In Tel Aviv, seasoned merchants with decades of experience could grade a diamond simply by listening to the sound it made when it fell onto a glass table. In Mumbai, old buildings housed hundreds of tiny rooms where entire families took part in the cycle of polishing and trading. All of this connected into a network no one could see in full, a network that grew stronger the more it was hidden. The most crucial crossing point between the legal world and the underground one lies in a simple truth. Diamonds do not have fingerprints. You can trace gold by its purity. You can trace paintings by their materials. But diamonds? A rough stone from Sierra Leone and another from Botswana, once fully cut, become almost indistinguishable to the naked eye. That reality allows billions of dollars worth of diamonds to cross borders each year without any certificate at all. The Mafia understood this long before governments did. During the peak years of blood diamonds, international criminal organizations entered the game almost as a reflex, not because they cared about diamond's beauty, but because diamond was the perfect tool for laundering money, moving value across borders, funding arms deals, paying mercenaries, storing wealth in volumes small enough to hide in a trouser hem. A diamond in a jacket pocket makes no sound, carries no scent, does not trigger metal detectors, and in many cases, arouses no suspicion. Later international investigations revealed that diamonds had been used as payment in transactions among criminal networks in the Balkans, the Middle East, West Africa, and South America. Some routes were tied to human trafficking, arms smuggling, and even terrorism. In some regions, only two currencies were accepted: the dollar and diamonds. And diamonds, paradoxically, were the safer option. But the danger did not stem only from transnational crime syndicates. It also came from tiny cracks within the legal trade structure. A rough diamond might be mined illegally in the deep forests of Sierra Leone, passed through 5 different hands, sold to a middleman in Liberia, legalized when mixed into a parcel from a neighboring country. Then, they were exported to Dubai or Antwerp as legitimate goods. No trail, no serial number, no witnesses. And finally, it ends up in an engagement ring, where its sparkle makes the wearer forget that its history holds the faces of those left hollow-eyed on the other side of the ocean. But the most important truth is this: the underground diamond economy does not survive on its own. It lives on the silence of the legal world. When a consumer country does not ask about origin, the underground economy grows stronger. When customers do not care about transparency, the shadows deepen. When a diamond's value is tied more to emotional meaning than to its physical source, the black market finds shelter. These gray zones become fertile ground for thousands of transactions no one wants written down. Eventually, international pressure mounted to a level where governments had to respond. In 2003, an initiative called the Kimberley Process Certification Scheme was created, a system meant to prevent blood diamonds from entering the legal market. A mechanism built on origin certificates, transparent paperwork, and cooperation among multiple countries. On paper, it sounded like a complete solution. In reality, things were not that simple. Experts quickly pointed out dozens of weaknesses. Documents could be forged, transit countries could wash the origin, small stones could still slip across borders, and the underground market always moved faster than the law. The darkness shrank, but did not disappear. Today, diamonds still sit between two worlds: the world of light, where they represent love and promises, and the world of shadow, where they can fund war, corruption, and deals no one dares to name. And it is precisely this duality that makes the journey of the diamond more unique than that of any other mineral. Not just because it is beautiful, not just because it is durable, but because it carries stories that light can never fully illuminate. If the journey of natural diamonds is the story of billions of years of darkness and pressure, then lab-grown diamonds are the story of a single spark born from human curiosity. While natural diamonds are created in the depths where the earth breathes hot and slow, lab-grown diamonds are born in cold, bright rooms where scientists replace time with heat, pressure, and willpower. What makes the birth of lab-grown diamonds haunting is not that humans can create a stone identical to nature, but this: for the first time in history, we touched a privilege that once belonged only to the planet itself. In the 1950s, inside General Electric's laboratories, a group of scientists attempted something many believed impossible. They knew diamonds formed under immense pressure and extreme heat. But knowing is one thing, recreating is another. Imagine a cramped room filled with steel machines as thick as submarine hulls. The scientists placed carbon at the center, then locked it between massive presses capable of crushing anything. The machines roared like the breathing of some enormous beast. The heat rose, pressure intensified. And they waited. Hours later, when the machine finally stopped trembling, they opened it and saw something nature took millions of years to create: a tiny crystal, transparent, harder than any manufactured material of its time. It was not beautiful. It did not sparkle. But it was a diamond. That moment was like the first time humans created fire. Crude, clumsy, but carrying the promise of a future we could not yet imagine. The HPHT method, high pressure, high temperature, opened the door, but the CVD method, chemical vapor deposition, developed a few decades later, was what truly made lab-grown diamonds astonishing, because CVD requires no crushing pressure. No imitation of Earth's core, just a vacuum chamber, a carbon-rich gas excited by plasma and time. Carbon in vapor form falls onto a surface like slow snow, layer by layer. No explosions, no shaking, no pressure. A diamond grows in absolute silence, like a droplet of light solidifying. Humans were no longer recreating Earth's process. Humans were replacing it. Once lab-grown diamonds became clear enough, large enough, beautiful enough, a natural question emerged. If a lab-grown diamond and a natural diamond are identical in every way, structure, hardness, optics, then what creates the difference? The answer does not lie in a laboratory. It lies in the human mind. Natural diamonds carry a story of time, pressure, darkness, and an ancient journey. Lab-grown diamonds carry a story of humanity, science, ambition, and engineering. Both are carbon, both are perfect in their own way. But the feelings they evoke are not the same. Traditional diamond corporations watched the rise of lab-grown diamonds with wary eyes. They understood that the threat was not technical, it was psychological. If people began to believe that beauty did not require origin, then everything De Beers had built, rarity, eternity, romance, would begin to crumble. For years, the natural diamond industry tried to avoid acknowledging the existence of man-made stones. They refused to call them diamonds. They called them high-grade cubic zirconia, lab-created gems, technical stones. But one truth remained. At the atomic level, lab-grown diamonds and natural diamonds are the same. There is no way to distinguish them without specialized machines. And that was what made the market tremble. Yet, from another perspective, lab-grown diamonds tell a hopeful story. They open a future where diamonds are no longer tied to war, brutal mining, or the suffering of disadvantaged communities. A future where diamonds can be created in controlled, transparent, environmentally gentle conditions. In bright white laboratories across the United States, India, China, and Europe, researchers step into CVD chambers as though entering a new world where beauty no longer requires blood or darkness. Each carbon wafer is coated in thin crystal layers that glimmer like frozen morning dew. Each diamond grows like a small star, forming in silence. When removed from the vacuum chamber, it reflects light exactly like a natural diamond, but without a past stained by conflict. And then, something interesting happened. Humans began using lab-grown diamonds for things unrelated to jewelry. In biomedicine, lab-grown diamonds helped create surgical blades sharp enough to separate tissue without damaging cells. In technology, they became semiconductor materials, super-hard components, and even building blocks for quantum devices. In clean energy, they opened new paths for heat and electrical conduction. Diamonds, once considered ornaments, became materials of the future. A path nature never planned, but humans did. The rise of lab-grown diamonds does not erase the darkness, but it poses a question to the entire world. Does the value of a diamond lie in its origin, or in the meaning we give to it? If humans can create perfection, is natural perfection still sacred? And when the future calls for synthetic materials, what happens to the traditional diamond empire? These questions have no answers yet. They sit quietly, like an unpolished stone waiting for light to fall upon it. The story will continue as the competition between natural and lab-grown diamonds enters its most intense phase, not just in economics, but in psychology, ethics, and the cultural soul of humanity. In a world where lab-grown diamonds can be created in just a few weeks, a quiet question begins to surface in the minds of those who once believed that diamonds were gifts of time. What truly makes a diamond precious? Is it the billions of years spent underground, the shimmering beauty, the human effort poured into owning it, or simply the story we attach to it? That question opens a new battlefield, one not fought in the deep forests of Africa, nor in suffocating mines, nor in international meeting rooms. It takes place within human psychology, within marketing, within the cultural values the world has spent centuries building. When lab-grown diamonds gradually became commercial products, the natural diamond industry reacted immediately. Not with guns or prohibitions, but with what they knew best, redefining the narrative. In advertisements, natural diamonds were portrayed as Earth's miracles, something that exists only once, something that cannot be copied or replaced. A work of art that nature spent billions of years crafting, carrying traces of ancient life, geological movement, and Earth's own history. Lab-grown diamonds, on the other hand, were positioned as technical imposters, similar but not real, beautiful but not sacred, perfect but soulless. Through the soft language of earth-created versus lab-grown, an invisible boundary was drawn. One side belongs to nature, the other belongs to humans. Both are carbon, but carbon with different stories. Yet the unsettling and intriguing truth is, consumers no longer believe in that boundary so completely. Younger generations, living in a world of climate change, ethical consumption, and technology advancing faster than cultural tradition, began to ask, if lab-grown diamonds are more beautiful, cleaner, conflict-free, environmentally friendly, cheaper, and more ethical, then why choose natural diamonds? A question that seems simple, yet strong enough to shake the entire industry. In some countries, lab-grown diamond sales have risen by 50% to 100% each year. New jewelry brands advertise love without a footprint, beauty without darkness, a stone that doesn't need age to be meaningful. And with that, a battle began, not between two stones, but between two ways of seeing. Natural beauty always carries a hint of wildness, unpredictability, and history. Natural diamonds are not perfect. Sometimes they hold inclusions, fractures, or faint internal clouds. But these traces are what give them identity. Lab-grown diamonds are perfect to the point of being surreal. No inclusions, no deviations, a crisp perfection as clean as the surface of a machine. But humans have a strange relationship with perfection. We crave it, and at the same time, we distrust it. Some see lab-grown diamonds and see the future. Some see lab-grown diamonds and see the absence of a soul. This is not a scientific debate. This is an emotional one. Amid the tension, some people stand in the middle. They do not care where a stone is born. They care about what the stone tells them. To them, a natural diamond is a story of time, of pressure, of darkness, of a journey millions of years long. A lab-grown diamond is a story of humanity, of curiosity, innovation, progress. Both stories are beautiful. Both deserve to exist. But the market does not accept ambiguity. The market demands a choice, and that choice has never been clear. The battle between natural and lab-grown spreads to every corner of the jewelry world. Traditional brands mark their products with natural as if it were a protective charm. New brands proudly display lab-grown as an ethical declaration. Some companies no longer differentiate at all. They simply say, a stone is a stone. Meaning is created by the one who wears it. That statement sounds simple, yet it carries a profound philosophy. Value does not lie in the material, but in the story that the material is used to tell. From another perspective, psychologists see something the business world rarely speaks about. This battle is not about diamonds. It is about the identity of eternity in a world that is changing too fast. In such a world, humans long for something forever, yet know that nothing is truly permanent. Diamonds, natural or lab-grown, are merely surfaces of that longing. And once a stone becomes a symbol, the conflict surrounding it is no longer a market war. It becomes a war of belief. There will be no absolute victor. No stone will lose its value entirely. But value will shift, not according to hardness, not according to clarity, but according to how people wish to tell the story of themselves. One day, someone may wear a lab-grown diamond to say, their love does not need history to be strong. Or they may wear a natural diamond to say, they cherish what lies beyond human reach. Either way, the battle has begun. And it will redefine the entire future of diamonds, not through hammers or anvils, but through the heart and consciousness of every individual. There's a gentle paradox unfolding in silence. While the world still sees diamonds as symbols of love, of solemn occasions, of lifelong promises, inside cold, gleaming laboratories, scientists look at them with completely different eyes. Not as jewelry, not as cultural icons, but as essential materials of the future, pieces so important that humanity may end up needing them more than the fashion world ever did. And once science began to touch diamond, the stone's journey turned in a direction history had never imagined. In modern operating rooms, there's a scalpel that is almost invisible. Its blade is so thin that light barely clings to it. It is not steel, not titanium, it is a diamond. A cut just 20 micrometers deep, 1/5 the width of a strand of hair, can completely change a patient's vision. Surgeons need a blade that never dulls, never vibrates, never strays, and only diamonds can do that. What ancestors once saw as sacred, as a talisman, now helps humanity reach the most delicate places of life. But the scalpel is only the beginning. In the microscopic world of cells, diamond becomes an eye. Nanodiamonds, small enough to slip into individual cells, are being used to monitor cancer in real time. Researchers excite them with lasers, and the resulting glow reveals how cells behave, how they respond, how they grow. Diamond, long associated with the idea of immortality, now helps humans understand the fragility of life. Leaving medicine behind, diamond steps into electronics. And here, beauty matters not at all. What matters is thermal conductivity, the highest of any known material. Today's microchips rise like miniature cities, yet heat like deserts. Silicon, the foundation of modern technology, is approaching its limits. To make machines more powerful without letting them burn, scientists need a material that can carry heat away as fast as lightning. And so, they turn to diamond. A thin diamond layer on a chip can lower temperatures by dozens of degrees, enough to open a survival pathway for the future of artificial intelligence, robotics, and supercomputers. Diamond, once resting inside wedding rings, now rests inside the brains of intelligent machines. But where diamond shines brightest is not medicine or electronics, but quantum science. Within each diamond are tiny imperfections called NV centers, places where one carbon atom is replaced by nitrogen, leaving a vacancy in the crystal lattice. That vacancy glows, not for beauty, but because it is sensitive to magnetic fields, temperature, and light in ways no other known material can match. From this, diamond becomes a quantum memory, an ultra-sensitive magnetic sensor, a timekeeping element so precise its error is no more than the breath of a photon. There are laboratories designing quantum clocks from diamond, capable of measuring the faint curvature of space-time beneath our feet. Diamond, symbol of eternity, is now helping humanity measure time itself. And there's another place where diamonds are transforming our reach, the Earth's interior. Ultra-hard drill bits coated in synthetic diamond allow humans to pierce rock layers that were once impossible to penetrate. Through them, we can drill deeper to access geothermal energy, a vast, clean resource still untouched, study Earth's internal structure, explore resources under extreme conditions. Diamond becomes the arm humanity extends into realms where steel and conventional engineering fail. And as science grows more dependent on diamond, one truth becomes undeniable. Lab-grown diamond is not an inferior imitation of nature. It is the engineering material of the future. Today's laboratories can create diamonds that are purer than natural ones, structurally customized, engineered with NV defects on demand, grown in sizes that nature rarely produces. Lab-grown diamond no longer serves the jewelry industry. The jewelry industry is merely a retail client. The largest customer for diamonds in the 21st century is science. A strange world is emerging. The most valuable diamond of the future may not sit on anyone's finger, but inside a quantum device smaller than a grain of rice. Diamond, finally, returns to its true nature. A perfect structure of the universe, a doorway into technologies our imagination has only begun to approach, a stone no longer worn but used to explore the future. Diamonds, on the surface, are just small stones. But in the 21st century, they are no longer the story of jewelry stores or romantic advertising. They have become the story of nations, of resource strategy, of economic leverage, of soft power, and of the quiet competition between emerging global forces. When the world looks at a diamond, it sees light. But when governments look at a diamond, they see power. Power in the mine, power in the supply chain, power in the cutting technology. Power is the ability to influence the global market, and above all, power in defining who gets to decide the value of that light. For more than a century, De Beers was almost the only voice that mattered. But that era has ended. The 21st century has seen a silent but profound reshuffling of the global diamond map, where three names have risen with formidable strength: Russia, Botswana, and China. Three nations, three development paths, three entirely different philosophies of power. Let us begin with Russia, a vast land where permafrost hides diamond deposits deep beneath eternal ice. Alrosa, the state-owned giant, controls more than 90% of Russia's diamond production and nearly one-third of the global supply. No advertising, no branding campaigns. It dominates through reserves. Mines like Mir and Udakni are not merely economic assets. They are geopolitical instruments. When Alrosa adjusts production, global diamond prices shift. When Russia faces international sanctions, the world is forced to ask, are diamonds truly as apolitical as we believed? In Siberia, where there is no sea, no fertile farmland, diamonds become Russia's gateway to maintaining influence in the global economy. A small stone with the impact of a lever. Leaving Siberia's cold behind, we arrive in Botswana, one of Africa's quietest success stories. If the world once associated Africa with blood diamonds, Botswana wrote an entirely different chapter: transparency, effective resource management, and reinvestment into national welfare. Diamonds account for nearly 80% of Botswana's exports, but instead of falling into the hands of elites or collapsing into chaos like many other resource-rich nations, Botswana used its diamond revenue to build hospitals, improve education, construct infrastructure, and sustain one of the most stable democracies in Africa. De Beers was once the irreplaceable master here, but Botswana grew, too strong to remain behind anyone, so the country demanded a renegotiation of everything. They forced De Beers to move a large portion of cutting and polishing operations into Botswana, retain more value-added processes domestically, redistribute profits under a new structure, and empower Botswana to become a regional diamond hub. For the first time in history, an African nation looked De Beers in the eye and said, "Share the power." And De Beers had to agree. Then comes China, a country without major natural diamond deposits, but possessing something far more formidable: the ability to create diamonds. In industrial cities like Zhengzhou and Changsha, massive CVD reactors glow like miniature artificial suns. Chinese companies are now the world's largest producers of lab-grown diamonds, especially for industrial and scientific applications. They do not need mines, they need technology. And they have two unmatched advantages: scale and speed. What took De Beers more than a century to build, the story of scarcity, is being shaken as China manufactures clean, large, high-quality diamonds at a fraction of the cost. From deep drilling to quantum chips, from biomedical scalpels to semiconductor materials, China understands that the diamond battle of the 21st century will not be fought on Earth, but in the laboratory. And in that battle, they are moving faster than anyone else. As these three new powers rise, the inevitable happens. De Beers wanes. Its market share shrinks. Its ability to control prices erodes. Its marketing loses influence over younger generations. Supply becomes diversified across Russia, Canada, Australia, Botswana, and emerging mines. Diamonds are no longer the domain of a single company. They have become the chessboard of nations, and that chessboard is more complex than ever. Russia uses diamonds to counter sanctions. Botswana uses diamonds to model a new African development path. China uses lab-grown diamonds to redefine the shape of the market. Western democracies push traceability to separate diamonds from conflict. De Beers struggles to survive in a world where it is no longer the only voice. For the first time in modern history, the light of diamonds is no longer purely romantic. It has become the light of political stance, national interest, and power struggles. And when we look deeply into this shift, we see one truth. The beauty of a diamond has never determined its future. Humanity's definitions of value, economic, cultural, political, scientific, have always been the true force shaping where the stone will go. In the 21st century, diamonds are not just jewelry, not just scientific material, but a crossroads where power, ethics, technology, and history converge. A small stone carrying the weight of the world. There are moments in human history when a new technology does more than change how we produce. It changes how we judge right and wrong, beauty and ugliness, responsibility and neglect. For diamonds, that moment did not come from the mines, nor from the laboratories, but from the blockchain. A stone that once could travel across borders, battlefields, black markets, and luxury boutiques without leaving a trace, suddenly found itself in a world no longer willing to tolerate ambiguity. People wanted to know the journey behind what they wore, just as they wanted to know the origins of their food, their clothing, and their energy. Transparency became a spiritual need, not out of curiosity, but out of ethics. And when that question was asked often enough, the world began to change. In a quiet office in London, an engineer turns a rough diamond in his hand. The light glinting across its uneven surface has nothing to do with beauty. What makes this stone important is the string of data encoded within it, the mining origin, transport date, cutter, certifier, and provenance, all stored on an immutable blockchain. It cannot be erased. It cannot be altered. It cannot be forged. For the first time in history, a diamond can tell its own story, one no one can distort. As major corporations like De Beers and Alrosa, along with younger companies such as Everledger and Brilliant Earth, entered the transparency race, a new model emerged: diamonds with digital passports. These passports follow the stone from mine to wearer, recording every piece of evidence regarding whether it was mined legally or illegally, its environmental footprint, labor conditions, the cutter and polisher, every stop in its transport chain, and whether the stone was ever linked to armed conflict. Strangely enough, blockchain, a technology born for cryptocurrency, became the moral safeguard of a 1,000-year-old industry. Blockchain does not make diamonds more beautiful. It makes them cleaner. But transparency does not come only from corporations. It comes from consumers. Generation Z, raised on social media, climate alarms, and global supply chain awareness, understands that beauty can hide suffering. They refuse to wear a stone that costs someone their home, their family, or their childhood. They began asking questions the jewelry world had long avoided. Where did this stone come from? Was it connected to war? Was anyone forced to mine it? How much water and energy were used to produce it? Can I trust its origin? These questions are gentle, yet their weight reshapes the industry. In Tokyo, young couples choose lab-grown diamonds for their engagements, not because they are cheaper, but because love should not cost someone else their pain. In Paris, jewelry boutiques promote clean diamonds as a lifestyle philosophy. In California, tech companies begin using diamonds only from renewable sources. Transparency becomes the new standard of beauty. Yet, transparency is not a straight path. It resembles an unfinished map. The Kimberley process, the international framework designed to eliminate blood diamonds, was once seen as the answer. But time revealed the truth. Dirty stones still slipped through, documents could be forged, and smuggling networks always outran diplomatic meetings. Blockchain holds promise, but it faces barriers, high costs, fragmented global adoption, and the reluctance of certain nations to embrace transparency due to vested interests. The more the world strives for purity, the more clearly it sees the uneven ground beneath its feet. But transparency, like light, does not demand perfection. It only demands honesty. And here, something remarkable happens. Diamonds, once symbols of power and status, are becoming symbols of ethical choice. A stone is no longer judged solely by its clarity or cut, but by the story behind it. Does the wearer care about its origins? Do they honor ethical production? Do they choose a cleaner future for the world they live in? If the 20th century tied diamonds to the promise of love, then the 21st century ties diamonds to the promise of responsibility. A promise not only to one's beloved, but to the entire planet. Transparency is reshaping the diamond industry the way the tide reshapes the shore, quietly but irreversibly. When a diamond can recount everything it has witnessed, from the mind to the hand that wears it, it no longer reflects only light. It reflects the human heart. The future may not guarantee that diamonds become cheaper, more beautiful, or more widespread. But one thing is certain. The future of diamonds will be cleaner. And the responsibility lies not only with those who mine them, but with those who choose them. Light is most beautiful when it hides nothing. Imagine you are sitting in a dim, quiet room with only a soft golden light spilling across a wooden table. On that table rests a small diamond, silent like a droplet of frozen light. It says nothing. It does not move. Yet its silence, a silence that has lasted billions of years, slowly opens like a door. Perhaps the strangest thing about diamonds is not their hardness, nor their beauty, nor their journey from the earth's core to human hands. It is the way we look at them. We look at diamonds and see time, but time looks at diamonds and sees us. Throughout the long journey you and I have just traveled, from the deep geological mantle, through ancient India, through European courts, through Africa's black markets, through laboratories glowing with plasma, one thin thread has always existed, connecting every moment. We have never looked at diamonds as ordinary stones. We have always placed something of ourselves inside them. A promise, a memory, a desire, a fear, a dream of becoming eternal. Diamonds do not carry these things in their structure. We put them there. Like cupping a drop of water in your palm, it takes the shape your hand wants it to have. There were times when diamonds were gods, times when they were emblems of empire, times when they were excuses for war, times when they were symbols of love, and now they have become an ethical question. Diamonds, things that seem unchanging, shift with each generation, as if they do not exist on their own, but only through the eyes that behold them. It makes us wonder, are diamonds truly eternal, or are they simply the story we need in order to calm ourselves? When you close your eyes, try to picture the journey of a single stone. It begins as carbon, the modest element found in everything, the trunk of a tree, a pencil tip, charcoal, the air you breathe. Then, deep underground, where darkness is as thick as the roots of the universe, carbon rearranges itself into a structure so resilient it feels almost proud. Millions of years pass like the slow breaths of a planet. Pressure, heavy as the Earth's oldest memories, forces carbon into diamond. When it rises to the surface, humans find it, not because it needed to be found, but because we needed something to believe in. That light enters our eyes, then our minds. Then the stories we tell one another, stories of love, of power, of loss, of war, of hope. In the end, the diamond becomes a mirror reflecting the inner world of all humanity. Today, when we ask whether diamonds are eternal, perhaps the answer lies in this. Eternity is not a physical property. Eternity is a spiritual need. Humans are fragile, fleeting, finite, so we reach for something that seems unchanging, not because it is truly unchanging, but because we cannot bear to see our own disappearance. And in the night, placing a diamond beneath warm lamplight, we realize it is silent, yet its silence feels like a whisper from time. Itself telling us that everything will change, and only change remains unchanged. But it is precisely that change that gives the journey its beauty. Diamonds were once the center of colonial conquest. Now they are the center of quantum science. They once symbolized royal power. Now they symbolize environmental surveys, transparency, and responsibility. One day, diamonds may not be ornaments at all, but materials for ships traveling beyond the solar system. One day, they may no longer lie in velvet boxes, but inside the cores of artificial minds. And when future generations look back, they may see what we today cannot fully see. Diamonds were never a story about matter. There was always a story about humanity. So, in the end, are diamonds eternal? Perhaps not. Perhaps yes. Perhaps the question is not meant to be answered, but to preserve a quiet space, a stillness in which the listener can breathe more slowly, more deeply, and feel the fragile yet beautiful nature of time. A stone cannot hold us in eternity, but the moments we spend looking at it, thinking about its journey, listening to its silence, those are the moments that let us touch something beyond our everyday lives. Like tonight, when the story closes and you place your hand on your chest, feeling your own breath. A diamond may endure for billions of years, but this breath is what connects you to the present, the only moment that has ever truly belonged to you. Perhaps eternity does not live inside the stone. Perhaps eternity lives in the way we inhabit each small moment, awake and tender as this one. And in the soft light of the night, as your eyelids grow heavy, the diamond, whether born of the earth or the lab, becomes nothing more than a tiny point of light, guiding you into sleep the way it has guided human storytelling across centuries, a story that has never really ended. It only grows quiet, like the stone resting still upon the table.